Hello everyone, my name is Oscar Blue Ramirez, bilingual journalist, reporter, and broadcaster from Tijuana, Mexico. We have been doing coverage of the immigration phenomenon for almost 4 years now, doing coverage particularly in the north borders that connect to the United States of America and also in the south borders that connect to the country of Guatemala. We had traveled more than 14 times to the south border of the state of Chiapas in the city of Tapachula that connects to Guatemala. Also, we have documented in the country of Guatemala where we suffered a violent attack and also we were assaulted as we were documenting the effects of a volcano that submerged a community of a lot of citizens on the country of Guatemala. We have walked in more than 8 to 10 caravans documenting this phenomenon and ultimately also the irregularities that coexist in every caravan and in every mass migration. We also have documented the cities and the north borders as Tijuana, Mexicali, Tecate, Algodones, borders that connect also with the state of Baja California, with California. In Yuma, Arizona, we have documented also in San Luis Rio Colorado, in Chihuahua, in the city of Ciudad Juarez, with also the part of Texas and El Paso, Texas. We have collaborated and worked with different networks, not only in the United States of America, but in the whole continent of America and Europe. We have been working strongly on this immigration phenomenon, trying to show the reality and the truth, with raw and uncut footage and live streams also. Interviews that profoundly show the delicacy and also the sensibility of this immigration phenomenon that has so openly been in the eyes of the public for years now. This caravan was special. And I say special because we never thought that this caravan would have been of 15,000 people. I have walked with caravans of 2,000, 500 people, 1,500, 2,000, 3,000, 6,000. This one was incredible, was more than 15,000. We never thought that on the 6th of June, when they told me a day before, we're going to go and pick you up at around 5:30 in the morning, Oscar. And we will arrive to the Park of Bicentenario so we can start walking at 6 o'clock. I was late. I woke up late because I arrived on Sunday without no sleep on my flight. It was overnight. And I slept around 2 o'clock in the morning on the same day of the 6th of June and woke up around 6 o'clock in the morning. Woke up, started running, and already my colleagues and journalists were there. But I ran so many blocks so I can get all the way to the front that it was unbelievable how long this caravan was. This immigration phenomenon on this first video, we will show it on this first episode how it got little by little together. We did 2 trips to cover this caravan, this massive influx that left the part of Tapachula, the most well-known bottleneck around the world. On the second trip that we did, we covered the whole caravan. But on this first episode, you will see how step by step we start getting and noticing how big this was going to be. We arrived and we started broadcasting on the capital of the state of Chiapas, that is Tuxtla. And from there, we heard that this was going to be the biggest and largest caravan on the existence of our country of Mexico. I'm Oscar Blue, for Border Network News, correspondent for Real America's Voice News and the Wendy Bell Radio Network, and other networks also. This is our experience that we lived on this first episode of what it's called 15,000 Migrants Walking. Enjoy. We heard some rumors that the largest caravan was going to be made on this year. When we arrived to the city of Tapachula, our main goal was go to the capital of Tuxtla to document around 200 migrants that they were protesting continuously for 21 days, asking the Mexican authorities for help for their legal documentation. But what we were going to discover was the largest movement of exodus from the country of Venezuela, who were they arriving continuously to the south border of Tapachula in Mexico, and that on the 6th of June, more than 15,000 migrants were going to be walking to the north of the country of Mexico. We started on the Bicentenario Plaza, where the defender of humanitarian rights, Luis Villagran, was talking to the migrants and telling them, who and what is your humanitarian right for asylum and refugee in our country of Mexico? And also, their legal migrant rights, as they were going to make the largest movement of migrants in the history of the south border of Tapachula.
Estado en la estación migratoria siglo XXI.
Yo, pero en la de lo familiar con la niña.
Bueno, y otra muy importante, meses, lo cual esta es una zona mara. Esta es una zona donde el Instituto Nacional de Migración a cada rato persigue a los migrantes. En esta semana, alguien, ¿para cuándo te la dieron?
Para el 15.
¿Para el 15 de qué?
Julio.
Julio.
That is correct. Ken Salazar, the ambassador of the United States in Mexico, he signalized that there needs to be a border wall in the south border states of Campeche, Oaxaca, Yucatan, and Chiapas. And we need to contain the migrants from moving up north. Title 42 has been, between the countries of Mexico and the United States, a complete direct oppression to the Latin American migrants. But also, it is important to signalize that only Title 42 it is applicable, and it is helping only migrants from Europe and other entities that they are not from Latin America. That is correct. The trafficking of humans on the south border, it is invisible in the south border states like Chiapas and Cancun. Nobody sees the buses when they're heading out of the states, but magically they are being stopped in other states like Veracruz. Migrants have lost their lives. This year we've seen a migrant from El Salvador with his son trying to cross the river Suchiate, and they were found drowned in the river. The organized crime is the only one that is benefiting from this contingent that the Institute National of Immigration has implemented on the state of Chiapas, when you have only the government authority working only two ways to give the migrants a legal pathway when you have several that they can work so they can have legal paperwork in the country of Mexico. Luis Garcia Villagran has been a pro-migrant activist and defender of humanitarian rights. He has been seen defending the humanitarian rights of the migrants for several years now. He is the leader of a non-governmental organization known by Dignification for Humans. He never thought that this exodus will get to almost 15,000 people on the 6th of June. He started with more than 300 people in the Bicentenario Park, speaking to them and telling them what are their humanitarian rights, for them to move to the north borders, or for them to move freely in the country of Mexico.
Que ya está en Estados Unidos, tengo entendido.
Yo voy primero.
¡Los migrantes!
¡Los migrantes!
¡No somos criminales!
¡No somos criminales!
¡Somos trabajadores!
¡Somos trabajadores!
¡Internacionales!
¡Internacionales!
¡Manchadas de rojo!
¡Manchadas de rojo!
¡Están las fronteras!
¡Están las fronteras!
¡Porque ahí se mata!
¡Porque ahí se mata!
¡A la clase obrera!
¡A la clase obrera!
¡Viva Venezuela! ¡Viva Honduras! ¡Viva El Salvador! ¡Viva Cuba!
¡Viva Cuba!
¡Viva México!
¡Viva México!
¡Viva la América Latina libre!
¡Viva la América Latina libre!
Ahora, Firulais, te están bañando y está haciendo calor aquí. ¿De qué te enojas? In the processing center of immigration in Tapachula, everything looked calm. They say the authorities that they are attending more than 300 to 400 migrants per day. We never knew that every single migrant was hiding in hotels and waiting for the largest caravan to get organized. In the meantime, we travel ourselves to the capital of Tuxtla, where more than 150 migrants to 200 migrants, they were camping out outside of the immigration center. This is kilometers and kilometers away from the south border. They were living in precarious conditions. Outside of the immigration center, they had tents. And also, they were hanging their clothes from trees. The immigration officers were just passing by. Children were sitting down on the benches and on the sidewalks, waiting for an authority to attend them and to give them the humanitarian visa or the multiple migration form. Need a response. We haven't gotten a response. More than 21 days here and no response. We just need our visa. We don't want to stay in Mexico. We don't want to stay in this country. Every day they're telling us a lie, exactly the same thing every Monday, next Monday. They're going to give us a response. They're telling us that they ran out of printing material, that they don't have plastics for identification. And they come to us with every single excuse just for us to not obtain our paperwork. The other day they told us that they had no electricity. Yes, it's been 14 days and we have been living outside right here on the street. And I asked for help because I'm traveling with my 3 sons and all of them are minors. And immigration told me that they were going to help me, but they haven't. They were holding me hostage at a shelter, so I had to get out of the shelter and come over here for help.
Bueno, en el Darién tuve mi caída, me partí la pierna, pero yo creo que México es lo más duro, aparte de esa caída es lo más duro que nos ha pasado a los migrantes. La selva del Darién se quedó pequeña delante de México. No somos atendidos por parte de migración. Sí, mi hijo está por ahí.
¿Y cómo vienen? ¿La vienen empujando? ¿Qué es lo que vienen haciendo?
Sí, ellos me traen en la silla, vengo por la frontera con la silla de ruedas.
¿Desde Venezuela la vienen empujando en silla de ruedas?
No, la caída la tuve en Darién, en la selva entre Colombia y Panamá.
O sea, se cayó en el Darién y por eso está en silla de ruedas así.
Sí, tuve una caída.
For more than 21 days, the migrants were waiting outside of the installations of immigration in the capital of Tuxtla. The authorities, as soon as they saw international press, immediately came out and started attending some of them, screaming their name and telling them, "You're next," for you to obtain the visa transit or the multiple migration form.
Alberto Sánchez Torres. Luis Alberto, Luis Alberto. Luis Alberto Sánchez Torres. Kenny Fidel Alban Rosas o Albán Rosas.
As we were located miles away from the south border of Tapachula, in the capital of Tuxtla, we never thought that back in the south border, there were thousands and thousands gathering every day for the largest caravan that has ever been built in the south border of Mexico.
Los migrantes pobres, la gente decente, la que solamente pretende ser mejores seres humanos. Doctor Andrés Ramírez Silva, del cual tengo su teléfono de WhatsApp, licenciada, no le he querido molestar, pero hoy públicamente lo estoy diciendo. Le pido a la COMAR y al Instituto Nacional de Migración que nos atiendan. Si nos dan nuestras credenciales hoy, mañana nos vamos. ¡Somos criminales! ¡No somos criminales! ¡Somos trabajadores! ¡Somos trabajadores! ¡Nacionales!
Amazingly, thousands of migrants started to come out and protest in the streets of Tapachula for them to give them the humanitarian visa or the visa of transit or the multiple migration form. They only want to leave the bottleneck of Tapachula. As we were working miles away from the south border, this was currently happening. Thousands and thousands were gathering every day for them to organize and leave on the 6th of June on what would be the largest caravan in the existence of migrants in the south border of Mexico. Immediately when we heard the news, we decided to travel back to the south border of Tapachula, 5 hours away from where we were in the capital of Tuxtla. We arrived that same day in the afternoon, and we were amazed and surprised of how many thousands of people now they were gathered in the Bicentenario Park, waiting for the caravan of the 6th of June, as another protest started, and they were walking and directing themselves to what is called now the prison of migrants, that is the installations of the 21st century, mostly known as the detention center for migrants. They went all the way over there and walked for kilometers to protest outside of these installations, demanding for the release of the migrants that they were imprisoned in this detention center, as they were exercising their protesting right to walk all the way to this immigration center and ask the authorities to release them, as they were preparing for the next massive movement on the 6th of June.
Gracias a toda la prensa por estar presente en esta gran marcha, hermano.
They arrived outside of the installations of the 21st century. The defender of humanitarian rights, Luis Villagran, tries to talk to the leader of the authorities and says, "Can we have 15 minutes of dialogue and conversation with you?"
Se van a hacer con el Instituto Nacional de Migración. Ya se está conformando una célula de mediación con ustedes y con gusto estamos para servirles. Estamos para servirles. No queremos bajo ninguna circunstancia que haya violencia y tampoco queremos aplicar la fuerza pública con ustedes. Por favor, les suplico a todos que actuemos conforme a la ley, como lo está diciendo el señor Luis, de tal manera que nosotros actuemos como gente civil.
On the next day, early in the morning, more migrants were gathering in the Bicentenario Park as they were listening to the defender of humanitarian rights, Luis Villagran. Every single one was waiting for the solution for the 6th of June. In this interview, I asked a really personal question, and I asked him, "What do you think, Luis, of people calling you a coyote, a trafficker, a trafficking of humans?" And this is what he said.
Luis, enfrente de toda la gente te voy a hacer esta pregunta y es bastante incómoda. Estos son los términos que han utilizado sobre ti. Pollero, coyote, ganas millones y millones de pesos de la gente, eres un traficante. ¿Qué le dices a toda esa gente que aquí la tienes?
Well, first of all, I gotta say to all of them, even myself, I have asked to the Fiscal General of the Republic, the Fiscal General of the State, and also the International Investigation of Finances. Come and ask me, check my accounts, come and see how I live on a daily basis. Why do I do this? Myself, have I asked the authorities to do so. They will stop the speculations and accusations, and they will do it. But you cannot hide the money, Oscar. You cannot hide it.
Hay una posibilidad de tener un diálogo tú y yo. Sabemos que una caravana nunca es la solución por el transcurso de los niños y lo que pasa a la gente en el transcurso de este estado de Chiapas, que es un clima muy húmedo. ¿Cuál sería la solución? El diálogo es la solución, Luis, más próxima.
Luis, you know that a caravan is never a solution walking through humidity and weather. We have done it before, and it's never a solution for the children and the women that they walk through these horrible conditions. Do you think a dialogue with the authorities will be key for this to not exacerbate and for them to not walk? Yes, I believe that tomorrow we will have a dialogue with the authorities of the Institute National of Immigration and leaders and directors What we want is a dialogue. We don't want to walk. We don't want a caravan. We want a solution for them to have it right here and for them to attain their legal document, Oscar. Making them walk through these conditions is never a solution. Luis, what do you think it is the solution for Title 42? I ask every single migrant if they are afraid to take the vaccine so they can cross an illegal pathway to the United States with the vaccination card. What do you think is the solution? First of all, we have to talk about Title 42 that is being extremely discreet, and it is only applicable for countries of Central America, countries like Nicaragua, Honduras, Venezuela, Cuba, and Salvador and Honduras. But it's not applicable for Europeans, other entities, and also places like Africa. So it is really discreet and it is discriminatory to Latin American countries. And it is taking away their right for them to ask for asylum and refugee. According to the United States law and international law, they can ask for asylum without judgment of entity color. We are hoping that this will create some kind of sensibility for Joe Biden and say to him, Joe Biden, we are also citizens that we have enriched the United States of America. Cheap man labor. We have scientists in the NASA. Latin American countries are the cheap man labor of the United States of America. Tapachula is full with the people of the MS gang. You cannot hold the people here for 1 month or 2 months. They're running away from their lives, and they're coming to another country to run more. We have infiltrated people in these caravans, people from the intelligence of Maduro from Venezuela, and also from Díaz-Canel from Cuba. I have seen how coyotes have come to me and say, Luis, we have more than 500 people. Let them in your caravan. I have sent to them. I will not allow that. I don't want your money. I stand with the poor people. I will not receive no money from no organized crime. And if I have the authority to kick them out, I will tell them you have 1 day to leave. And if you will not leave, I will call the authorities and let them know what you are trying to do in our caravans and movements. I stand with the poor people. I do not stand with the rich.
No van a poder con la basura que dicen que somos polleros y que ustedes son el mal que hay en esta ciudad. Nosotros somos la fuerza emprendedora que le va a dar más energía a los Estados Unidos de América, compañeros. Así es que, compañeros, si tienen dudas, entonces, compañeros, por favor, pónganse si les hicieron lo que hayan sido, hoy, en el nombre de Dios, por favor, entiendan, solamente hagamos caso como un gran ejército, ordenados para hacer bien las cosas, Tapachula. Entonces hagamos las cosas ordenadamente, por favor, hagan caso, si de niños...
Little by little, the caravan was growing. People were reuniting. As the count grew, a lot of children started arriving with single mothers, but ultimately, the majority of this caravan were single men and also single fathers.
Demostremos que somos gente civilizada, que somos gente ordenada.
Every statement was well listened. There were a lot of infiltrated individuals in this movement. People from the intelligence of the political party of the communist dictator of Nicolás Maduro of Venezuela. And also, there were infiltrated intelligence from the Díaz-Canel government of Cuba. This is how dangerous this caravan was. We did not know who was around you, who was behind you. But ultimately, the defender of humanitarian rights, every day he said that he stand with the poor. He stand with the migrant that did not have money for his process of immigration status. All the time he was saying, I stand with that person that does not have money. We will walk if they don't listen to us.
Somos fuertes y podemos aguantar. Estos son los grupos vulnerables, mujeres y niños. Ellos son los grupos vulnerables. Ellos van a ir primero. Ellos van a ir primero en los trámites y después todos los hombres. Yo me rijo por la autoridad. La única autoridad por la cual yo me rijo es Dios. Autoridad, la máxima autoridad del Instituto Nacional de Migración habló conmigo el día de ayer. Ellos tienen para resolver mentira. La mayoría de la gente que aparece en el Facebook no existe, son troles, son inventos, etc. Yo les voy a dar la información que va hasta este momento. Hay un padrón que está manejando el compañero Javier. Aquí está detrás de mí Javier, es con el que estoy tratando directamente. A través de él hay un patrón. ¿De cuántos tenemos ahorita, Javier? Bueno, todos están registrados. Necesitamos entender algo muy importante. Necesitamos tener orden y...
Every day, the list was growing. It went from 800 to 3,000 to 7,000. Even we asked, how many do you got right now? And they said, we are close to 10,000. Every day, more people were coming to the Bicentenario Park to sign their petition and also to sign their list of paperwork with their identification and also their number. More people were reuniting day by day. It was unbelievable to see how many thousands were scattered all over the city and the south border of Tapachula. Many of them were volunteers. They had more than 10 leaders of 10 different entities. At this point, all of our colleagues in the south border, colleagues, journalists in the south border of Tapachula, and also international colleagues that work for international networks, we were really surprised on how well they were organized. They had their identifications, they had their passports. They were really organized, a thing that as the caravan was moving, when they were walking, it was a complete disorganized situation. It was a complete disaster. They were moving all over the place and it was divided on 3 to 4 different groups. But on this particular point, we were really surprised on how things were working and how the emotion was, accelerating day by day. And in addition to that, different leaders were getting more people. There were people from Nicaragua coming and they were calling the leaders of the caravan saying, how can you guys hold one more day? We are about to arrive on a bus. We are about to arrive on this particular place. And, it started growing, and to a point that we thought, wow, we never thought that it was going to get to this point. One particular thing that it was really important to say, it is that there's a lot of infiltrated individuals by the intelligence of Nicolás Maduro. There's a lot of intelligence of Díaz-Canel, that is the socialist communist dictator of Cuba. But the most preoccupying thing, it was that there was a lot of intelligence and also from other different entities, but there were infiltrated people from the MS gang. This is due to the fact that Nayib Bukele has incarcerated more than 45 to 50,000 people. This to clean up his country. And a lot of them, they are running out of an exodus. And you had this particular problem in this caravan. This is what happened next.
Lo que tú puedes hacer es... Ya yo te lo entregué, pero no... ¿Para qué me puedes pasar tu link? Tenemos teléfono. Ya está registrado. Por favor. Ya va. No pasa nada.
Ah, listo. Si
veo uno repetido...
Disculpa, mi amor, va a pasar sin la cédula. Que se haga la cédula, por favor.
De mi negra. Papel, nada más papel de la
Tengo las 2 listas aquí de los familiares. Yo tengo la lista, ahorita voy a ver cómo es eso. Vete con Marco. La primera hoja.
Sin cédula.
They use a crayon to put their number on their risk, the number that they were located on the list, so they will not forget on which list they were on. They use every resource. They were organized at first, using their identifications and whatever resource they had to organize every documentation and put it on a paperwork so it will be delivered to the fiscal general of the state so they can get a protection claim which gave them the ability to walk freely outside of the state of Chiapas. In particular, the main objective was to leave the main city of Tapachula and from there walk to the next immigration location where they will probably get the multiple migration form, which will give them the ability to walk freely for 10 days to 30 days in the country of Mexico.
Está sacando copia. Así como no están los primeros y los segundos y eso.
Pero mira, ya va, un momentito. Lo que pasa es que acontece, ¿verdad? Que ya se colocó el número con bolígrafo. Tienes que preguntar los que no tienen número con bolígrafo, que ya pasaron, ¿qué van a hacer con ellos? ¿Por qué? Porque no te puedo poner un número que ya lo tienen los muchachos, ¿ya me entiendes? Pregúntale al de verde para ver qué explicación te da él, porque simplemente estamos colaborando. ¿Tú, López?
José Javier.
Ah, José Javier.
El 7 de Méndez.
Ah, ya va. Acá el 7.
Méndez.
¿Dónde está? Está allá, mira. Él está allá. Ay, qué lindo, que es lo que está en. Ah, pero que fíjate que allá está el flaco, mira. El flaco es el cuñado, mira. Anda a preguntarle. ¡Ey! ¡Oye!
No, ese es Eduardo.
Que iba a estar aquí yo tengo el número 15. Estaba detrás de ella.
Necesita 100 copias. 100 copias y aprovechen de una vez sacar su fotocopia de la cédula de ustedes y de sus hijos.
Pero ya yo le colaboré ya.
Si necesitamos...
Si somos 100 que todos
Remarcámelo. Ya tiene que esperar que lo llamen, ¿sí?
They use crayons and they write on their wrist the number of the list that they will be on to walk on the caravan on the 6th of June. They use all kind of methods to be organized and to not lose their number, but ultimately to be put on the list correctly and for people to not jump in front. In addition to that, there are several other leaders of the caravan who are taking the leadership to basically know who is on the list, as thousands of them are reuniting on every day. On this particular point, it was extremely surprising for me how they were getting organized and how their persistence to move forward. But the only thing that it was concerning is that we did not know who was in this caravan, if they had a legitimate case of asylum, or they were just economical displaced asylum seeker, or different types of refugee and asylum petitioner. As thousands, they were reuniting on every day. Migrants were continuing to arrive as they heard when they are traveling from Nicaragua and Honduras that there was going to be a massive caravan on the 6th of June. They have accelerated their travels to arrive before the 6th of June, as already they have been speculating that this will be the largest caravan in the history of the south border of Mexico. On the next day, the leader of the caravan and defender of humanitarian rights, Luis Garcia Villagran, arrives again to the Bicentenario Park. As thousands, they already know that he is going to speak, and to let them know what is the process and what was the response of the Institute Nacional of Immigration, if they complied, as the number one negotiation and dialogue was for the Mexican authorities to prevent them from moving on a caravan, but give them the documents so they will not leave on a massive movement. But apparently, the result was the opposite. The Mexican authorities told Luis Villagran they will not negotiate. So after this, they got all together reunited, as thousands were meeting at this particular park to tell them on the 6th of June, all of us, we will be walking. In the middle of almost 2,000 people on this gathering, I asked Luis Villagran what he thinks about the situation in Tuxtla, where we were a couple of days ago, where more than 150 migrants were stranded and waiting for documents. Also, I asked him, is this the largest number that he has ever managed on a caravan? And what is his thoughts about the caravan? And this is what he said. These are extreme vulnerable people. They are living on street situation. They're living on the streets. This is a serious situation and it needs to be arranged immediately. Also, the situation in Tuxtla, I know about the 150 migrants that they are stranded. On Thursday, I am going to go over there to try to fix that and try to get those migrants the paperwork. This is almost 5,000 people that we have on a list. How big is this movement? For us, it is going to be huge. There is almost more than 10,000 people that they are already enlisted. The government needs to listen to us. The government needs to listen to our petition.
Ser el número final de estas peticiones.
Arriba de 10,000. Si no arregla el gobierno, nos vamos caminando 10,000 personas de Tapachula el día 6.
Sería el número más grande que has manejado, Luis, en la historia de...
Nada ha dicho que sea ilegal. ¿De acuerdo?
On that same day, later in the afternoon, there was another gathering. 2 press conferences were held that day due to the urgency to know if the Institute Nacional of Immigration of Mexico was going to arrange them the paperwork. The rain started falling in the afternoon, and in the middle of almost 3,000 people, you will find me in the middle of everything doing an interview to the leader of the caravan. We needed to know if this was going to be the largest movement ever in the south border of Tapachula, the largest exodus of migrants. Specifically, 85 to 95% of this caravan was going to be people from Venezuela. The other percentage was people from Central America, Africa, Bangladesh, Cuba, and all parts of the world. so many questions, so many doubts. After finishing the interviews with every international press, I approached the leader and defender of humanitarian rights, Luis Garcia Villagran, and I asked him, Luis, I just heard a new number. There is more than 11,000 petitions that are already in your hands. Is this the largest movement of migrants in the history of the south border of Tapachula? And this is what he responded.
Luis, esto podría ser el movimiento más grande en la historia en la puerta sur de Tapachula. Escuché más de 11,000 peticiones tienes el día de hoy.
That is correct. I believe that this is the largest movement of migrants in the history in the country of Mexico, and also in the south border, and there is going to have a huge impact in the north borders. This is why it is so important that your information needs to be objective, to send a message to Joe Biden and the United States administration to be sensible to the current migrant situation and humanitarian crisis that we are living. At this moment, what is going on right now, it is the first time in history of the caravans and movement of immigrants that they have reunited this amount of people. There's too many souls that they are running away from persecution and bad governments from their countries. You not only have people from Venezuela and Central America.
No solamente tienes la gran población de Venezuela, que es la mayoría, pero también ha llegado población de Bangladesh, la India y Somalia, Luis.
We also have people from Bangladesh, from the India, from the Middle East and parts of the world. We know that there is a humanitarian crisis. We know that something is happening in the world. We need to resolve this. The epicenter of immigration is Tapachula, which they are trying to get to the safest place for them, and that is the United States of America. We know that there's a lot of opposition in the United States, a lot of Latinos, that they are discriminating against the migrants, who they do not want migrants to arrive to the country of the United States. But we will take that risk.
En Estados Unidos, que no quiere que lleguen sus hermanos pensando que no hay lugar para todos. La migración no es problema.
Es lo que está pidiendo Estados Unidos. Tú decías de la restricción de los alimentos, ¿ok?
Luis.
Va a ser muy importante. Deben de ustedes estar pendientes de las noticias en cuanto a la forma en que Estados Unidos está tratando de recibir a los migrantes, sobre todo latinos. La aplicación del título 42 está haciendo de manera discrecional en contra de la población latina, no de la población africana, no de la población ucraniana, ni de otras latitudes. Es exclusiva de venezolanos, de cubanos, nicaragüenses y la gente de Centroamérica. Los está regresando a México. Los está regresando a México. Mucha gente está perdiendo la vida en el río Bravo. Mucha gente está siendo detenida y la están regresando nuevamente a Chiapas y a Tabasco. Por eso, vamos a caminar, vamos a llegar todos juntos a la frontera norte, compañeros. Este es el primer paso, compañeros. ¿De acuerdo? Dios ya les ordenó. ¿De acuerdo? Entonces, compañeros, hagan esa manta.
¡Sí se puede! ¡Sí se puede!
Bueno, yo no les voy a resolver. Les va a resolver.
Así.
Compañeros, ¿quién se quiere quedar en Tapachula? ¿Quién se quiere quedar en Tapachula? ¡Los migrantes! ¡No somos criminales! ¡Somos trabajadores! ¡Internacionales! ¡Marcadas de rojo! ¡Está en las fronteras! ¡Porque ahí se mata! ¡A la clase obrera! ¿Quién le tiene miedo al agua? ¿Quién le tiene miedo a Ágata? Nos tienen miedo porque no les tenemos miedo. Por eso nos tienen miedo. ¡Viva Venezuela, compañeros! ¡Viva el Salvador! ¡Viva Nicaragua! ¡Viva Colombia! ¡Viva Honduras! ¡Viva el África! ¡Vivan todos los pueblos de Latinoamérica! ¡Viva México! ¡Viva Tapachula, Chiapas! Compañeros, solamente confiando en el poder de Dios. Nadie está acá a la fuerza. A alguien lo tenemos acá a la fuerza.
His name is Dagny Ahmed Urfali Juarez. He's a migrant from Venezuela. His father is from Syria and his mother is from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. His father served in the Gulf War. A really interesting migrant. Extremely capable and intellectually to give me an explanation of immigration and the consequences of migration. He wants to migrate for a better life. As we were sitting down, he gave me a rundown of how the migration has a consequence to not have filters. Also, he was really emphatic on saying that immigration should have a responsibility on the migrants and that every government should have a filter to know who's coming in and who is going out. This is why you have an irregular migration. That is what he says. We sat down with him and we talked to him for more than 20 minutes. This is what he had to say about his travesties on migrating through Mexico and also what needs to be done on the responsibility on the migrant side on this mass migration.
Vengo de Venezuela y mi nombre completo es Dagny Ahmed Urfali Juarez.
Tienes un nombre bastante particular, cuéntame un poquito de ti.
Okay.
Yes, my name is Dagny Ahmed Urfali Juarez. My mother and my father, they met right here in Mexico. My mother is from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. My father, he is from Syria. He came from the 6 days of the Gulf War, and they met here in Mexico. I'm a migrant from Venezuela. I'm a civil engineer, and I graduated from the University of UNEV. We asked him, what did he think about the documentation of migration, and what is his thoughts about this massive influx that is coming through every border? This is what he said. Yes, the immigration topic has caught my attention. It's not only that we are fighting for a right, and we are actually not getting benefits right now, but sometimes I think that what are the consequences of a mass migration? A lot of us, we haven't gone through filters. That is a big problem. These filters, they need to be implemented so the countries will know who are the good people that they want to be received on the other side of another country. And also, and it's important to say, that all of these massive groups, there's a lot of delinquents and vandals inside of these movements. And that is a thing that the government of every country has not put attention to. There is a lot of irregularities in migration. And knowing that we are asking for an opportunity and knowing that we are looking for a better life, I believe myself that the immigration, it is divided in 3 sectors. The first one, it is the people that they migrate and they say, I want to stay on this country, and they're going to be received and they create their families, they get a job. And also they build economies for those countries. Another ones don't migrate. They get to a country for the benefits. So they take out the money from those countries and they send them back to their country. That is also a consequence of every region that is managed by an economical percentage. So when you have those kind of migrants, it affects the economy of every region. I am really emphatic in saying immigration should have filters and know who is coming in, and also we should know who is coming out. But ultimately, the most important thing that we should know who are the bad people and who are the good people.
Sí, con respecto a las visas humanitarias, siento de que el país no...
Yes, when it comes to the humanitarian visas, my point is that the government should not be the one that has been holding all the responsibility. The migrants should be also responsible. Just for you to know, this immigration situation, it is demanding that the sovereign nation of Mexico carries all the burden to pay the humanitarian visas. Me and my group, we were discussing this topic, and that shouldn't be the way. We as migrants, we want to be heard, and also we want to be responsible. We should have a responsibility. The migrants should have also an obligation to pay a small percentage of the permit, because the sovereign nation of Mexico, they're not going to sustain this. They're going to collapse, and they are exacerbating the cost of every humanitarian visa. Although you have international organizations, if you're a migrant, you know that you're migrating. They should have a way to pay a specific percentage for this process so we can continue to move forward on every country. Yes, totally. I have said when they move from another country to another country, because we don't have filters, there's a lot of bad people that they are migrating, also infiltrated. So the levels of violence on every country and every border, they increase to a level of insecurity that overwhelms the border authorities. You can actually see this on every border. For example, in Guatemala and Honduras, we saw a lot of migrants that got stranded on those countries because they did not have money. So their last resource was violence and assault. There's other people that they will say, I will rather stay in my country and look for a better job instead of migrating and suffering.
Una asociación activista, defensora de derechos humanos de los migrantes. Compañeros, por favor, organícense. Por favor, ustedes organícense. Háganle caso a Javier, no de Nicaragua, no de El Salvador, ni él de Venezuela.
This is how it looked on the next day. The first meeting was around 9 o'clock in the morning. This was on the 5th of June. It was thousands of people reuniting in the Bicentenario Plaza, waiting for the departure that is going to be at 6 o'clock in the morning on the 6th of June. Luis Villagran, the defender of humanitarian rights, was standing in the middle of more than 5,000 people, telling them, tomorrow we will walk. There is around 10,000 people on this list. I only see half of you right here present. But we will walk. It does not matter how much or how many are the quantities. Just remember, the kids are first to be on the list. The women and the children, we are going to protect them. We are not letting them walk all the way behind. We need to keep our pace for the children and the women. We need to stay hydrated. We need to stay together. We need to stick to the plan and walk together as a team. 2 meetings were held that day, one in the morning and one late at night, as we never thought that on the next day, on the 6th of June, more than 15,000 migrants, they were going to walk on what would be the largest caravan in the existence of the country of Mexico, and also the largest caravan who has come out of the south border of Tapachula. on the next meeting. Meanwhile, everybody was in the plaza, thousands waiting for the next day. The Institute National of Immigration officers were doing raids on every local hotel and motel to arrest the migrants and to put a scare tactic for them to not walk on the next day, as the rumors were escalating for every governmental dependency. They knew that the largest caravan was going to be held on the next day of the 6th of June. Wow, we have worked so many times in the south border of Tapachula. As I mentioned, more than 13 times we had traveled to the south border of Tapachula and worked over there and to cover the migrant situation. As everybody knows, there's a lot of trafficking of humans, a lot of trafficking of women and trafficking of children. It's most recently, you will see the catastrophe and the tragedy that happened in San Antonio, Texas, and that is continuously happening through our country of Mexico, through the smuggling of immigrants, and also what is happening in the catastrophe and tragedies in the Darien Gap in Panama.